So I love the topic today because I think it's relevant for everybody who is looking to see how you're gonna have enough income. Because I'm not here to talk about death. It's really about what are you gonna do so you can be worry free. I use the number 40 because that's what people are aiming for. Work for 40 years, 40 hours full time. By the time you retire, you're going to live on 40% of the income. And today we're going to focus on, I'm going to just give it to you right now. We're going to talk about lease options. So at Trust Your Talent, we don't call it rent to own. That's the street name. There is a lease and an option. Just with this one strategy, even if it's not your focus strategy, I'm going to show you how I reach financial freedom with this strategy and how I started with this strategy, why it will make sense for people who want to reach their retirement goal in that case. So first thing first, I'm still here to tell you to do things ethically and legally. As much as I want to be everybody for you, to be your lawyer, your accountant, your mortgage broker, my goal here is to be the instructor and be your mentor to lead you along the way. So before we get started, make sure you're starting to build your power team. By the way, because it's so important to build your power team to get you started. When I started, I don't know if it's the same for you. I was thinking, if I can start to be in the community and start to build my team, for me, that alone is worth it. Because I know we said this a lot. Your network is your net worth. And by the way, I only listed a few. Mortgage broker, accountants, your lawyers. You don't just need one. You need a estate lawyer, you need real estate closing lawyer, and knock on wood, you might need litigation lawyer someday, or your paralegal. And who is not listed on your power team that should be on the list? So unmute yourself if you have any idea who should be on the power team list that I didn't put them here yet. Kate, that's an easy one for you.
Your realtor.
Your realtor, yes. So investor-focused realtors. Winnie, anybody else you think should be on the list?
Property manager.
Property manager, yes. Your property manager. And perhaps there's your insurance broker. And remember, we always talk about pity. So your mortgage, your property tax, and your insurance. So these are the people that should be on your power team. And perhaps your contractor as well. So really depending on what strategies you're going to focus on. These are the people that should be on your list. I'll tell you why I put that little Chinese circle next to it, because it's a famous quote. I just want to share it with you. So if you see somebody smart, use their skill to plan, to scheme. If somebody is not as smart, it's actually using the term idiot. However, if they're strong, then make sure you use their strength. If you see somebody who is brave, use their courage. And if somebody is always scared, that means they're the analytical type. Use their skills to do the due diligence. And if you're none of the above, I think I'm none of the above, then make sure you know how to lead and leverage other people's time, other people's skills, other people's strength. And you're here to leverage other people's knowledge. So these are the people that should be on your power team. And yes, this is important to every strategy. And I know you're here to learn. Ultimately, we want you to find the fulfillment. That's actually one of the core value at Trust Your Talent. How do you find fulfillment? Yes, if you're learning here, I hope. And my intention here for you is to gain the knowledge and feel that, okay, I can start somewhere. So when you start to apply and actually take action, that's when you can find fulfillment. And yes, I want you to have your cameras on so I can see you. If you can read it, if you can see it, and please turn your volumes up too so you can hear me. And if by any means, if the internet is not great, let me know. Oh, I could have used hardwire. That reminded me. So my point here is to take you to the next level. And by discussing it among the groups, when you start to talk about it and then take action, that's when you gain the extra 75-90% of it. So that's why I want your participation. So you're here investing your time with me. I do want you to get the most out of it. And by the way, I believe the last 10%, even though it is not there listed, I think it's to have fun. Really think about why you're here. And once you achieve that goal, how would you feel? Because I also like one of the quotes I always use is that people will always remember how you make them feel. You might not remember what you learned in grade 5 or who your favorite teacher was in elementary school. However, you remember how they made you feel. So I want you to have fun here. That's the most important thing. And just to get us started, since we're talking about a 40-year plan, we're talking about retirement, I do want to know how old you are in the group. So Catherine, with your help, let's start the first poll. Most people are middle-aged from what I see. So actually, this group is relatively young and it's very evenly distributed. So if you're under 44, congratulations. That's one of the most important assets, your time. You actually have more time to accumulate more wealth. And your planning might be different from some of us in the group as well. So, okay, I do recognize that we do have a very diverse group, quite evenly distributed. However, if you're like me, you're 45 and above, you do need to run a little bit faster. Luckily, I think for some of us, we perhaps accumulated some RSP, some work experiences, and perhaps your property appreciated a little bit. And I'll give you a reason why people are settling for the 40-year plan. So if you just finished the class with me, you know I did mention this. However, I just want to put it into perspective. Today, I just want you to remember why you're here and why does the number not making sense for people who want to follow the traditional path. 40-year plan, thinking the government will take care of me. I just work 40 years, 40 hours full-time, and then just spend 40% of my peak earning by the time I retire. Is that really the case? Are you really going to spend less? Do you need more medical care? Do you have more time now to spend your money? And why do people still follow the path? Because people cannot think beyond today in most of the cases. What's worse is that sometimes people get stuck in the past. So people cannot relate to the future self when they're old, when they're sick, when they're not as strong. So it's hard for people to plan for the future self. However, if you have a kid like Ben, and if you have people or a cause, for some people, they might want to, I know some students who want to start a shelter, who are devoted to their church, or who have experience with addicts in the family, for example. So these are the cause, or other people, they do want to focus their energy on a future for. However, most people don't relate to their future self, so they don't plan for it. Also, people don't know if there's another way. And that's why you're here. I do want you to see a different way, even if you haven't started utilizing the strategy. So for today's webinar, by the way, I know we're going to go through some numbers. Just follow through for the first time. Even for myself, when I knew I wanted to focus on the strategy, it still took me quite a few cases before this is intuitive to me. And I hope at the end of the class, you don't feel like you don't know what to do. And this is a fact. By the way, these numbers have been updated. A lot of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. By the way, I think the number have increased just based on the recent news. More people have credit card debt, probably $20,000 and more. Even if it's not credit card, perhaps line of credit. By the way, as an investor, don't be afraid of debt. The point is how you manage money. I don't encourage people to just take on debts not knowing what to do. The point is for you to leverage it so you can make sure you're making money. Don't borrow money unless you're sure you're going to make money or you're going to make an investment, whether the investment is in yourself or in your future. I know you're investing in real estate for the future. At the same time, make sure you start to invest in yourself. So give yourself a pat on the back because you're actually here investing your time. So invest in yourself. And I know it sounds just like a concept if you're not any of the statistics that are worrying about your future, worrying about having too much debt. The matter of fact is, I hope you're above the average. If you look at the median age and the median net worth, this is where people are. So if you plan to just have $1 million by the time you retire to invest, a lot of the times people use the 4% to be conservative. If you invest with the bank, if you have RSP, if your company contributes to your RSP, let's assume by the time you retire, you have $1 million. That means that you're living on, 40% of your income. So say $40,000 by the time you retire. However, is that enough? So if you haven't heard of this, use the 72% rule. 72%, if you just want quick math, it tells you how quickly you can double your money. If you're earning 12% of interest, 72 divided by 12, that takes you 6 years to double your income. By the way, since we're talking about real estate investing, does anybody know what's the average appreciation of properties in Canada? Just on average. Realtors in the room?
3.5%.
3.5. Kate, what do you think? What's the appreciation?
6.
Yeah, it's roughly between 5 and 7. So yes, about 6. And that means it takes about 12 years to double your income. If you look at the property price, if you think about how long you have owned the property, I know the last few years were a little bit crazy. However, if you think about on average, your property value would double in about 10 years or so. So if we just use that number, remember I showed previously, this is how much you have at the age of 35. Still relatively young. And I know we just saw the age in this whole group. So that takes you 12 years to double your money at 6%. I'm even being a little bit more optimistic because a lot of people don't know how to invest. They just leave their money at the bank in the RSP, hoping that it's going to generate 6%. By the way, when you're reaching retirement, when you need to take the money out, we're not speculators, so we don't know how the market will be. A lot of people, by the way, in 2009, 2008, when they had to take their money out, the market plummeted. So really, you don't know. However, just work with the average numbers. If you just double your money every 12 years using the statistics, that's a tough word. Basically, you can reach close to $1 million by the time you're 65 if you save diligently. However, do you think Canadians are really saving? Take a wild guess. Are we saving that much for retirement? No. So this is the recent data I pulled. By the time people retire, not a lot of people are saving nearly enough to reach the retirement. By the way, when the government introduced RSP, we're starting to be responsible for our own retirement, even if your company is contributing or matching your RSP contribution. So I'm showing this number. I know we talked about age group. By the way, write this down. If you're above or under, how are you doing compared to most people? How are you doing? If you just look at the number within your age group. By the way, I check the data. If you're a couple and you are in the household together, that's your combined net worth. If you're single, because it looks at household net worth and savings. And this is actually how much people on average are contributing to RRSP. By the way, I gave you the number of $1 million by the time you retire. Realistically, just based on what's happening recently, this is the newest report from BMO, you're supposed to have 1.7 in order to have enough to retire. So yes, you might be above average. However, in Canada, being average is not enough for you to retire. Nina, I see you have your hand up. Do you have something to add?
Hi, Brooke. Yes, and sorry, my camera is off. I'm just in the middle of something here. But RRSPs is so interesting, right? Because it's great if used, it's great for tax deferral, and great if used for investing, if you know how to use self-directed investing accounts. However, you can't rely, you can't rely fully on RSPs unless you are planning to not max out your withdrawals. Those withdrawals are still taxed at the end. So if you are planning to live out your dreams, take the cruises, vacations, holidays, whatever, that's going to require a certain level of pullout from your RRSPs at that age, and then that's taxed. So this is where, people wait to live their dreams until after the age of 55, 60, 65. However, then they're still taxed on that full amount that's being withdrawn. So it's good if used wisely, but not something to bank on for the future and live out kind of the life dreams and aspirations at that point in time either.
Thank you, Nina, for sharing. By the way, and I know at least half of the people in the room are coming to annual conference. So we're going to talk about RRSP as a little bit more advanced vehicle when it comes to investing. So yes, same thing as that, same thing as credit card. So RRSP is the same. If you don't know how to manage it, it's really not going to help you financially. So Nina did bring up a good point that yes, when you retire, it's going to be taxed. By the way, from our experience, even if you're the younger bunch in the group, do you think tax will always go up or go down? There you go. Exactly. So it's very important to know how to manage your RSP and do your tax planning as well. So we will touch upon that in the more advanced class. The full point is for you to see. If you just follow the path, even though I was traditionally educated as well, if you just follow the path, find a good job, wait 40 years, what are you going to do? So what are people doing right now? What are people doing right now? People are actually using their house. Even though a lot of people are not buying their homes to invest, people are actually leveraging reverse mortgage. More and more people are using their house to fund their retired life. So it's just the trend. You gotta be way above average to enjoy life. By the way, I've actually talked to my kid about it. Yes, it's hard being an entrepreneur. And if you read the book, Rich Dad and Poor Dad, if that's where you started, you know that more people failed when they start a business than the people that have succeeded. Probably 10%, if I remember right from the book. However, if you're in Canada, we're already enjoying the top 5% of lifestyle. So we already won the lottery. My point is, it's really doable. If you're thinking about the odds, yes, sometimes it's hard to go against the crowd. It's still achievable. And you're probably the top 1% because you're learning to invest and wanting to know how to invest. To get us started, I do want to know what your goals are. By the way, if you have no idea what your goals are, I've seen a lot of students doing their introductions on Talented Group. If you haven't, take a look at what people are doing to achieve their goals. It's quite similar in a lot of cases. People want to have time. People want to get out of their 9 to 5. People want to have the opportunity to travel. Or if you like scuba diving, whatever you love, you might want to aim for that and have time to do that. And take vacation when you want. So what is your goal? What is your why? If you have no idea, that's why we have the core value on screen, because that kind of gives you an idea. You want to have health, you want to have fulfillment. And a lot of the time, people trade money for health by the time they retire. And I get that everybody could be different. If you had health issues recently, health might be something you want to focus on. And if you want to make an impact, if you have kids, Courtney, I see your kid on screen. If you want to have an impact, and if you want your wealth to be sustainable, then work backwards. Then that is your why. And think about why you have that why. By the way, Catherine, can you pull out the second poll? I want to have an idea what your whys are. I know it's cliche sometimes. At the same time, sometimes it changes over time, depending on your life experiences. I can tell even for myself, sometimes when I'm thinking about my goals, yes, it constantly changes. However, in the beginning of the year, we always say have a big aim where you're going towards. You can pivot along the way. You can pivot. At the same time, your big goal is always there to guide you. Otherwise, you could be aiming for nothing. Okay, about 10% of people want to get out of 9 to 5. Okay, consistent cash flow, planning for retirement. So most people want cash flow. Some people want legacy. Actually, the biggest group is consistent cash flow. Can somebody share, why do you want consistent cash flow? If that's your answer. I don't know who put in the answer. I do want to hear, why do you want to have consistent cash flow? Mohammed?
Yes, actually, I like to have cash flow because the way my life is right now, instead of I'm not going to work, so I need cash flow. So I stopped going to work.
Oh, have a sustainable lifestyle?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So
No
I'll
problem.
keep that in mind. Thank you, Mohammed, because this is a great strategy if cash flow is what you're focusing on. If you haven't heard about lease option and don't know what it is about, it is a strategy that's going to generate a healthy cash flow, especially in today's environment. If you're not sure where you're heading towards, we do have different tools out there. So join us if you want to hear more about the basic strategies. By the way, the webinars are meant to give you the basic understanding of the strategies. You just know enough to be dangerous at this point. So if you haven't been to the workshop to look at different strategies and what could be a good strategy for you to reach your goal, make sure you register for the workshop. And if you're already in the community, I'm going to see you at the annual conference. So that's when you're going to choose an event strategy, events training for a 3 days straight. So you're going to be immersed in the environment with other investors. And just some of the pictures I love to share with everybody because I haven't met some of you in person yet. And if you haven't registered, make sure to take a picture of it and reach out to your strategy coach for a promo code. And these are the courses that's going to be there. So infill distressed property. Distressed property is a strategy that could work in any market, up, down, sideways, as long as you can find the good deal. So for all the TYT students in the community now, this course, along with financing fundamentals, are the 2 courses that every student will take. So creative financing 1, when we get into more advanced tools like RSP, we talked about it, private lending, and joint venture. These are alternative other people's money that you're not going to get from the bank. So I know a lot of people are thinking that banks are saying no to me. Now I'm capped. I'm no longer able to invest. That's not true. So that's creative financing level 1. Service accommodation, we don't just call it Airbnb or student rental, because really Airbnb, for example, is just a platform. So we're going to talk about short-term rental, mid-term rental, service accommodation, rooming, housing, etc. So that's your service accommodation. And by the way, infill is a little bit more advanced. So we recommend that you take a couple of courses before you take infill. And then a lot of us are investing in the US. Foreclosure, there's really no true foreclosure in Canada. So if you're into the US market, we're going to offer foreclosure at the annual conference. And if you're new, by the way, make sure you join us for the next workshop. There's in-person workshop. There's also online live ones. So that's the next step you'll take to give you an idea what's out there. There's so many different strategies. And to give you just a brief description of our agenda today, we actually have gone through some of the REI, so real estate investing fundamentals already, give you some idea of where people are and what money is really about. And at the same time, we're going to go through the basics. No matter what strategies or advanced training you're going to take with TYT, our fundamental theories and what we believe in is always the same. You always start from your goal and then look at what your next step is to decide what strategy you're going to be trained on. So today I will talk about lease option and then how to structure a deal. By the way, there's a lot more to it. I'm just here to open your eyes on what are the possibilities. Okay. So yes, I'm going to go through some numbers. My point is for you to see, okay, if this strategy is for me, with this kind of number, do I want to know more, learn more to help me reach my goals? Again, it always starts from you, the stick man. What are you thinking? What are your goals? What inspires you? What you really want to do? Then you look at different buckets of income. By the way, lease option is one strategy that's going to cover all three different income sources: portfolio income, earned income, and passive income. It's funny that everybody here, or most people here, want to focus on cash flow. So yes, you want to focus on cash flow to help you reach your financial goals, to reach financial freedom. So by the time you have enough passive income, you don't have to always work and trade hours for money. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Surprisingly, I put down one of the options was to accumulate capital so you can start to make your money work for you. It doesn't have to be your money. However, accumulate capital meaning working capital perhaps from you or from your joint venture partners. So if you're trading your time for money, nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we do need to do that to accumulate some capital. You can work on some fix and flips. So if you're taking distressed properties, for example, that's the next basic training that you're going to get once you're enrolled. Passive income. So basically your cash flow after all the expenses are paid. Income properties. It could be income property doesn't only include multi-unit residential. So you're probably thinking about an apartment. However, it's an income property if it generates passive income. If you're putting money in, to me, that's not an income property. Even if you claim you have so many doors, it doesn't matter. It's not an income property if it doesn't generate enough income. So there is also portfolio income. That's really when you start to create wealth. So appreciation, or perhaps you have equity in your house, or find money in the buy. Find money in the buy. That's how you'll find money and putting money in your piggy bank. For the long term, remember we look at net worth. Your net worth is mostly in your portfolio income, or it could be paper assets at the same time. So I know perhaps it's not clear yet. Once you start to learn about how different strategies will generate income, you'll see how it's going to work for you. So we offer a wide range of curriculum. Everybody needs to learn how to raise money and how to present yourself. That's basically communication. And yes, everybody will come to the basic financing class with me. So even if you're never in the real estate investing community, you know that there are resources available that you'll be able to utilize. And there's distressed property lease options, which we're going to go through today. Wholesale assignment. So that's sometimes called flipping paper. So you just assign it to somebody else. You call it assignment fee, you call it wholesale fee, you call it referral fee. However, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's a pretty simple transaction in a lot of cases. It's really your ability to find the deals, structure the deals, and leave some money on the table for the next investor. And by the way, if you have no money, you're young, this is somewhere you can start. And also service accommodation, foreclosure. These are the classes I just mentioned that we're going to offer. By the way, this is my story. It might be similar to yours, it might not. I do hope you find some similarities and some points that you could take away at the same time. I started in 2016, in the fall of 2016. It seems like forever by now. However, just like you, everybody has a goal. I started with lease option. I'll go through the numbers because I'm thinking at the time that I want to replace my working income. So I want to have enough cash flow to just validate that this could work, this strategy could work. Before I started investing, I've only been in the workforce for 1 year after I stayed at home. Basically, it feels like forever. However, somebody already mentioned tax. I realized even with double income, it doesn't make sense to make more money, pay more tax. And again, we mentioned this a lot, but if you haven't written this down, it is really about how much you keep. It doesn't matter how much you make. So double income family, I think that's true for a lot of people. It doesn't make sense for a lot of people to pay so much tax. Contribute to RSP. So Courtney, thank you for passing down the pen so you guys can take notes. And I started basically with zero stream of income when I stayed at home. Everything we do here, and I hope for you too, everything is intentional. So yes, I did it for my family because I do want them to not have the financial burden once they grow up. Actually, to me, later I thought about this. I think I see a lot of kids on screen now. I think it's for us to show that we're setting an example. You probably already felt that when you grew up, you're following your parents' path, even though not intentionally. So I thought, even if I didn't succeed in real estate, and luckily we did, at least we show the kids that you can work hard and this is something achievable, because there's a lot of noises out there. My kids will ask me questions like, why do you have so many mortgages? By the time we grow up, are we going to have more debt? Really, these are all opportunities you can think about. And I list my book here because I think everybody do everything with a purpose. The goal of my book is to encourage new investors. It's very similar to the path I'm taking you through today. Why are we doing this? How do we set ourselves up? So yes, it's another stream of income, and thank you for the community. Luckily, I invested some money to have the book done, and I already start to enjoy the passive income. Not a lot, however, this is something I want to pass down to new investors. And for me, speaking in front of people was actually my biggest fear. So if you're here to find the next thing to do, I know there's a lot of scary things when people perceive real estate. You hear horror stories. You hear a lot of things on the news, like people can't afford their mortgages, etc. However, I think that's why you're here to get yourself educated. Otherwise, what's more risky? You have to get into it. Everybody has to manage your finances. So why manage it blindly when you can get yourself educated? So I put my house here to show you that everything is goal-oriented. So if you're thinking about generating another, say, $800 of cash flow, think about how much you can afford in terms of debt. If you want to build a house, if you want to have the ability to afford another $100,000 of mortgage, how much cash flow do you want to generate? So for me, my house is kind of something that gives me a guideline as to how much cash flow I want to have. With the additional $800, I can put in an offer with another $100,000, for example. And we talk about gold SMP. These are just some of my lease option deals across Ontario. I do have ones outside of Ontario. However, the point is, I talked to you about gold. By the way, SMP. I forgot to volunteer existing students. Strategy, market, and property. If you are still new to the community, Winnie, Courtney, Elizabeth, Lawrence, SMP. So we always talk about SMP. Your strategy piece, service accommodation, income property, lease option, fix and flip, wholesale, whatever it is. We always focus on our goal first, then decide on what strategies we're going to focus on. So I'm showing you the map, telling you that as long as the strategy work in these markets, these strategies could work. I know a lot of people are fearful of getting out of their home city. However, it doesn't matter. We are goal-oriented. Remember, strategy, market, then property. It doesn't matter where the properties are. If it's still not clear to you, by the way, reach out to the strategy coaches. Nina is here. So if you already have a strategy coach, make sure you speak to them. And they can speak to you about different strategies and how for you to reach your goals. or figure out what your goals are. So we'll get into lease options right now. I know it sounds like we're building the foundation for the past half an hour. However, it's really important for you to do that and to know that this is the strategy for you. And I do believe that we are here because we want to create a difference in your life. All of us and some of the current students, and even Nina, started with Trust Your Talent. Our goal was to create financial independence, help you create financial independence within 2 to 5 years. It doesn't matter if you can reach the goal in 10 months, 2 years, it doesn't matter. Everybody could do this and reach their goals. By the way, me compared to other members on the team, it took me a little bit longer, actually. By the time I published my book, just before I published my book, that was when I reached my financial freedom. Even though I have that on the title, I was a little scared putting that title on the book while I didn't reach that goal yet. However, it's like writing your goal, you never know. Once you write it down, it's actually louder in your head. So it helps you reach that goal. And I know that we ask you to do some exercise sometimes if you already talked to your strategy coach. Make sure you know what your financial number is. Number is just a number. However, there's a meaning behind it. What does that number enable you to do? And at Trust Your Talent, we always believe that there is a way for everybody to win. And that's why I love the lease option structure. Everybody can win. The tenant buyers, we call them tenant buyers, by the way, because they're first a tenant and later on they're going to be the buyer of the property. The tenant buyer, us as investors, and if you have a joint venture partner, your joint venture partners as well. If you have a mortgage broker you work with, mortgage broker or somebody who help you find the deal, realtors, for example, so everybody could win. However, I put these out there and make sure you still do it legally and ethically. And option deposit, by the way, I'll give you the brief idea of how it's structured. If somebody has bought a car before, or if you know stock options, basically when they come into the program, they come in what we call an option consideration. By the way, we use every word carefully. Option consideration will later be converted to down payment when they're ready to purchase a property, when they're qualified for a mortgage and ready to exercise their option to buy the house. It sounds complicated, it really is not. However, everything I said was intentional. And that's how you're going to be once you're an investor. Remember, I didn't say down payment because they have the option to purchase. They do not have to purchase. However, they have stake in the game. We carefully screen the tenant, make sure their intention is to buy the house. So even though I read down option deposit, it's not refundable. We don't say that in a contract. We want to make sure the tenant understands there's a stake in the game. By the time, if they decide not to buy the house, we have to clean it up. We have to find a realtor. We have to pay them commissions. We might have to clean it up and stage it. All the expenses, we have to deduct that from the option. And most likely, they're not going to see their options coming back after the expenses. Okay? So let them understand they have a stake in the game. We are in control because we structure the deal. We make sure they have what we call option consideration, like I mentioned. When they first get in the program, it's called initial option consideration. I know it sounds a little bit complicated, and every month they put in monthly option consideration. Everything adds up, and that is their total option consideration. That's the total amount they're going to save up with us when they're ready to exercise their option to purchase and qualify for a mortgage. That's going to be converted to a down payment. Remember how we speak as an investor. I don't say down payment, not only because of the option to purchase, not the obligation. Also, they don't have equity stake in the house yet. If you tell them it's down payment, they might think they already have a stake in the house itself. Okay, we do want them to treat it like their home. And yes, it is because they chose the property. At Trust Your Talent, we always focus on tenant first. We find the tenant first. We qualify them to see that, hey, They're trainable. They will be able to succeed in 2 to 4 years to buy the property before we agree to take them on to our lease option program. Okay. By the way, I see a lot of opportunities in lease options, perhaps not in certain markets, because as you know, if you're following the news, it might get harder and harder for people to qualify for a mortgage. So there might be more people who need your help in that case. So make sure you explain it clearly. There is the lease. Why do we call it lease option and trust your talent? Because they're two separate contracts. One is a lease and one is an option to purchase contract. By the way, if by the end of the seminar, you do want the slides, I'll have it available. I'll send it to your strategy coaches. So when you have questions, they can jump on a Zoom call with you to go through any questions you might have. You can also reach out to me at the same time. So make sure you understand there's lease, there's option, and they're separate. The option is option to purchase. I know some people are asking about tenant-in-law, etc. When it's tenant-in-law, it's the lease. When it's the option to purchase, is the option that gives them the right to purchase. So they have the first right to refusal, meaning that they can say no first before you decide to do what to do with the property. Okay? So I understand this might be the very first webinar or training for some of you. So just follow the process first. I'll aim to explain what it means to you and also to the people you're helping. We talk about cash flow. A lot of people are here for the cash flow. Yes, you can generate amazing cash flow. And also we talked about money in the buy. Write it down. We always talk about money in the buy. When you're getting into distressed property, when you're even getting into income property, we always talk about money in the buy. There's lower cost when there's money in the buy when you get into a deal. In a lease option scenario, you're thinking, we're going to look for a property on the market. How can we find a cheaper property? That's not the point. The point is when the tenant comes in the program with you, they're already put in what we call initial option consideration. So I talked about the options, lease. A lot of people are thinking about buying a car or lease a car. So the option consideration is to say that, hey, I want the option to purchase. I want to have that first right of refusal. So before they come in the program, it could be depending on the property price. It could be $10,000, it could be $20,000, or it could be more. That initial option consideration can help you with an initial investment. That could be there for you for closing, for lawyer fee, for realtor fee, etc. So that could be the money in the buy for you to lower acquisition cost. Okay. And also you have control. And a lot of people during the time when the property value kept going up. By the way, lease option, the option purchase price for the tenant to buy the house, it's already predetermined. So there are no surprises. We know that they can qualify for this amount. And that's when your mortgage broker comes in to help you evaluate the situation and to tell you if the tenant can qualify. So we control and define what our cash flows are. Interest rates, if you're using variable interest rate, that might be different. However, we know how much appreciation every year we're going to assign to the property. So basically, we'll tell the tenant buyer that every year, depending on the market, we'll appreciate the property at, say, 3%, 4%, 5%. By the time you're ready to purchase and qualify for a mortgage, this is a purchase price. So even though a lot of people are telling me, hey, appreciation the past few years are pretty high. However, you control the profit. You control additional cash flow every year. Kate.
When you said depending on the market, it's at the time up front that you are signing that you're saying, depending on what we think the market will be in the next 2 to 5, 3, 4 years, whatever the range is. It's not like, oh, next year we decide on the amount for that year. And then it's like all up front, right?
Everything else up front. So there's more work up front. And then afterwards, every year you enjoy the cash flow. So remember our goal, one of the biggest goal here, yes, great cash flow. You want to help the tenant buyer become a homeowner. So you want to define how much the property will be priced at. So I'll give you an example. we talked about the average appreciation of a property is 6%. In some market, perhaps it's only 4%. So in a lot of cases, in those markets, you only appreciate the property at 3.5% every year to determine the option purchase price. So for those of you who are new, since this question came up, I'll give you an idea how we determine the option purchase price. So for example, the property is 100,000. Next year, we'll appreciate it at, say, 4%, 5%. And then the year after, additional 5%. If it's a 3-year program, appreciate that amount by another 5%. That's how we determine the option purchase price. We do that and work backwards to see, okay, can the tenant buyer, based on their income today, etc., qualify for a mortgage of that amount? With the total option, we help them save up. Can they qualify for that mortgage by the time they're ready to purchase? So that's why we're in control. By the way, tenant buyer is also in control. So they choose the house they're going to live in within the budget, of course. We give them the budget for them to decide on where they want to live. By the way, you'll also learn about this in different classes. The property has to make sense even for us as investors. I'll give you an examples because sometimes people just fall in love with the property. There are certain properties that are hard to get a mortgage for them or for us as investors. There are properties that are rural. There are towns with only 1,000 people in it, or there's foundation issue or trailer park, etc. So yes, it's a home of their choice. However, there are still some criteria, and usually we don't go invest in condos because of condo fees. That's going to affect their ability to qualify for a mortgage as well. And we call them homeowner in training because not only are they taking care of their finances, they're also taking care of the repair of the house. So what's different from a usual lease is that they're responsible for all the utilities. They're responsible for all the repairs. Minor repairs, by the way. I don't want them to spend $20,000 on a repair, and that affects their ability to qualify for a mortgage, for example. So yes, the property you choose is important. It's usually not a distressed property, and it's something that's manageable for the tenant. And during the time they're in the program, we mentioned that it's 2 to 4 years. However, in some cases, I've seen 5 years now because yes, it's getting harder. And some people need a little bit more help to save up the option consideration. We help them repair the credit. So by the time you get in the strategy, you'll also learn about credit repair. How can we help them? Yes, there are your power team members there to help you and help you analyze. And also force them to save. Force them to save towards the down payment once they're ready and become a homeowner. By the way, you're helping families, and at the same time, you're also making good cash flow. That's why a lot of people love the strategy, especially if you're a family person and there are people who have helped you in the past. So in my experience, if you help your tenant, they also have friends. And I love new immigrants. I was a new immigrant myself. So if they're new immigrants, a lot of the times they know other people. And they know other people who are in similar situations. And basically, I'll go through the numbers with you. There are different ways to analyze the numbers. We'll go by process. Once you take the advanced class, you'll be provided with Excel sheets, etc. However, for the purpose of you learning about the strategy and how it works, I'll take you through the process, and then you'll see how you as an investor profit from each stage. So in the initial stage, we already talked about initial option consideration. So doing acquisition, that help you with the down payment. So in other words, money in the buy. So doing the program, I know everybody loves cash flow. There is cash flow that would help you generate enough cash flow to replace your working income. Or for me, I was looking at, okay, if I want to build a new home or buy a new property for my home, how much more do I need every month in order to afford that? If you love traveling, if every trip costs you, say, $6,000 for the whole family, $6,000, divide that by 12. So that's about $500 per month. You just need to generate $500 per month, every month, for you to have that lifestyle. So it's things like that that you can think about how it relates to you while you're helping your tenant buyers. And in the very end, you get proceeds from sales because we already anticipated the appreciation. You know the price at the end of the program. So that's why when you get into lease option, you basically know what your profit is in the very beginning, what your profit is at the very end, because you already taken into consideration what the appreciation should be. So how do we start to screen tenants? That's a very, very important step. So that's the beginning of your relationship with your tenant buyer. Remember that you're in the program with them from 2 to 5 years. Your regular tenants, on average, you have interaction with them probably on average 2 years. So besides being a tenant, you're also helping them repair their credit. You want to make sure they're the right people. They're willing to be trained. They do want to be homeowners. And it's like us. They want to have a financial future where they can be homeowners. So these are questions I usually ask my tenant buyers. I don't just throw a questionnaire at them. A lot of the times, after they fill out the questionnaire, I still go through the questions with them, because the point is to get to understand who they are, what kind of people you're working with, not just on paper. By the way, funny enough, a lot of the times you look at what people put down on paper, you have an idea where they are in life and what happened to them in the past, perhaps consumer proposal, etc. A lot of the times people go through divorces, life changes, etc. And use this questionnaire, very simple questions. By the way, you just want to have a conversation. It doesn't take more than 15 minutes, and you can have a meaningful conversation with your tenant buyer to see if they're qualified. I do this even before I send them off to my mortgage broker to evaluate their situation. Because once you talk to enough tenant buyers, you know that they should be taken to the next step or not. So I put this in my book too. I think in the beginning, I put an ad out. I probably talked to 100 people. My first deal came pretty quickly. However, on average later on, it took me quite some time. And then I realized I didn't have to spend a lot of time. And perhaps 100 applications, you only need to talk to 10 of them. And at first, each call could take 40 minutes because I didn't know how to get all the answers that I wanted to get. Later on, it's like investing. You get the practice and you start to understand how it works. So really, it's about people. Like I mentioned, what's the point of going through the conversation? Are they committed to be homeowners? Are they willing to invest in their futures? That's why it's so common to have tenant buyers that come in as a family, because they do want to invest in their future for their kids. One of my favorite tenant buyers is actually a family of 5. And the kids came in when they were almost adults. Now they're all adults. And I have 4 or 5 people qualifying for the mortgage. I'm actually working with them right now to help them close. So are they willing to invest in their future? They're a big family from the Philippines. So the mom was here first. She worked a few years for some families. And later on, she brought her whole family over. So imagine how much they have invested, because she already invested a few years in Canada in order to bring her whole family over. And they all found jobs pretty quickly. And now it's been more than 2 years, almost 3 years now. So they have accumulated enough option consideration, and their credits are all looking pretty good on track. And also, are they coachable? I also talk to them about life insurance, because they're new to the country. By the way, you can ask them, do they want life insurance? Because it's basically like a mortgage. I want to make sure by the time they start to get a mortgage, they understand how everything works. Credits, insurance, managing their monthly expenses, and exit strategies. Why did I say don't buy properties in rural area or condos? Because what are you going to do if, knock on wood, things happen that they didn't want to exercise their option to purchase? What can you do with the property? That's why exit strategies are so important. By the way, if your strategy coach hasn't spoken to you about exit strategies, in today's market, we recommend that you focus on 3 different strategies. It could be short-term, mid-term, long-term, and 3 exit strategies. So this property, what can we do with it? I'll give you a quick example. I know people who have turned into service accommodation, short-term rental, and flip it. I flipped a house in that situation. However, the tenant buyers were good. It's due to health reasons. So we flipped the houses, even though not intentionally. We converted 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom. Or can you just hold it as a long-term rental? So think about what your exit strategies are. Or even though we talked about tenant buyer first, are you able to find other tenant buyers in that market, if that market works, to start a new lease option program? And I know it's interesting how money works. So I'll take you through how the numbers work. And I get that if it's your first time, it might be a little more complicated. However, I'm not going to throw an Excel sheet at you. Just go through the process with me to see how the numbers work. For some of you who have already taken lease option class, perhaps you still need to talk to your investors to simplify the process. Because by the way, our advanced training is at least 12 hours. Go through this process. Perhaps you only have half an hour, 45 minutes with your investors. How can you explain the strategy to them? So yes, as an advanced or a seasoned investor, you want to know how the money works. However, I'm just going through the process with you. And same thing, usually when I present either income property deal or lease option deal, have everything on one sheet of paper. Sometimes things are too complicated. You could scare people away. So I do want your feedback. If it's still too complicated for you, the way I explain it, let me know. Okay? Because you'll benefit me in the future and also future students. By the way, this is a lease option I was just talking about. Funny enough, I have a few examples. However, this happens to be the one that I'm going to close soon, and it's a huge family living in the household. That's the actual house in Orangeville, Ontario. So we purchased the property at $470,000. It's a 3-year term. And the option to purchase price is $544,000. By the way, I'll give you little nuggets here and there. We don't overappreciate. I mentioned that first thing is that we don't want them to not be able to qualify. Second, of course, we calculate our profit. Second is that the property has to be appraised at the value you put in the option. Again, it should be appraised so the tenant buyer will be able to get a mortgage. Meaning the property should be valued at, in this case, roughly about $550,000. So when they go get a mortgage, it is appraised at that value. Okay, so it would make sense. So option to purchase $544,000. By the way, if you're familiar with surrounding cities around Toronto, most of the property in the past have appreciated more than that. So we want to be a little bit more conservative. I know with my other lease option in other provinces, 5% might be too much. Okay, so like what Kate asked, it could be market dependent. In their case, they put an initial option consideration, $15,000. So that $15,000 will help us at closing when we purchase the property. Okay, and the total payment for the tenant buyer per month is $3,550. Okay, so that includes the rent and monthly option consideration. Remember, monthly consideration will be accumulated by the time they're able to qualify and decide to exercise the option to purchase. It will be converted to their down payment. So quick math, all the expenses add up, $1,900. And then you can calculate how much the cash flow is. So basically, it's just revenue every month, the rent plus monthly option, minus all the expenses. So that gives you a cash flow of $1,600. If you can qualify for the mortgage and do the deals yourself, $1,600. By the way, if you're sharing the wealth, you have an investor coming in the deal with you, you are still enjoying a cash flow of more than $800 a month. What can you do with $800 a month? So accumulated over a year, so every year, 800 times 12, over $9,000. You can decide what to do. Perhaps help with your truck payment, for example, if that's what you want. I know some people are into cars, some people are into boats. And for me, it's traveling. I don't even have to travel extravagantly. However, I do want to have a family trip. If you're a family of 4 or 5, for example, add that up. Is that enough for you to have a family trip? So think about why we're in the deal. Cash flow, return on investment, and again, we mentioned money in the buy. Cash flow, $800 if you're sharing the wealth. Over $1,600 if you can qualify and carry the deal yourself. Okay, so these 3 things, that's why I love lease option. Cash flow, return on investment. Remember, return on investment means how fast your money is running for you. Money in the buy, because there's initial option consideration. There's a lot of things I'm repeating. However, they're important. So if we start to look at the cash flow, again, it's pretty simple. Monthly rent plus the monthly option consideration, minus all the expenses. So if it's a 3-year program times 12 months, 12 3 years. So just on the cash flow portion, it's $59,400. So there's profit from cash flow. By the way, there's also profit from sales at the end of the program. So remember I mentioned initially, you're going to enjoy money in the buy, during the program, cash flow. And at the end of the program is when you sell the property and enjoy profit at sales. So profit at sale is the option to purchase price minus give the investor their initial investment back. So all the profit minus your initial investment. The lawyer fee, land transfer, depending on where you are. Some province, Alberta, doesn't have land transfer tax. So all the costs and expenses at the end. The profit at sales is the option price minus your initial investment and all the closing cost. That is your profit at sales. Okay? And what is your total profit? You have the cash flow every year and also profit at the end. That is how you calculate your profit at sales and throughout the program. So who want to enjoy 42% of return? Yes? Oh, come on. Nobody wants 42% of return. By the way, if you're the working partner, thank you, Kevin, for the clap. If you're the working partner, you don't put any money in it. By the way, perhaps there's cost for marketing, etc. Then your return on investment is basically infinite. Thank you, Winnie, for putting your camera back on. I know it's exciting how much return you're enjoying. By the way, how many of you are still working 9 to 5? No shame to that. Okay. How often do you get a 21% raise? Every year. So there you go. Even if it's 1 deal a year, I hope you do enjoy more deal every year once you are an active investor. So why do we love this? This is pretty much in line with a lot of your goals. 3 to 5 year plan. So same thing at Trust Your Talent. We do want you to reach your financial goal from 2 to 5 years. And it is a part-time effort. Why do I say that? Because yes, it's a lot of work in the very beginning. Once you're used to it, once you have a few deals and understand how it runs, it could get a lot more easier. Just like what we talked about, action and practice, same thing. And if you use this example, let's just assume you only work on 1 deal per season. So every season, 4 deals. If you run the same number, look at how quickly your money can run for you. If you can qualify for first, a lot of people can qualify for 1 or 2 property. It's okay, even if you don't. So imagine you just have 4 deals. Even if you joint venture with everybody else, this is pretty much the average price in a lot of places across the country. And it is a price range that a lot of first-time homeowners are looking at. Let's assume similar deals. You can do that every season. So if you look at the chart, looks like a lot of number. I just want you to go through it with me. So if you look at the first deal, it starts with, in the first season, we call it seasonal job. And then the second quarter, if you start from April, for example, then you enjoy, say, a joint venture, either $1,600 or $800 of cash flow. You have another, say, 8 months or so to enjoy that cash flow. So just imagine you do that consistently. 1 deal a season, 4 deals. So I just want you to see the numbers and see how quickly your money can grow for you. So if you consistently find 4 lease option deal, by the way, as you close a deal, your profit or your income will significantly increase because you're also enjoying the profit at the end. And if this is your one focus strategy, by the way, I have switched my investment goals. Everybody is different because I think at my age, I love lease option. So I want this to be one of the strategy I'm focusing on. At the same time, I'm also looking at creating long-term wealth. So you can look at, a lot of people don't have the capital to start actually. By the way, I've also mentioned it in the basic financing class. You need to have the net worth, for example, to get into income property. So perhaps this is where you start and see that real estate investing can really work. You accumulate enough capital, start to get into different strategies depending on where you are in life. What is interesting enough is that I found helping other people reaching their financial goals is very similar to us on the path of reaching financial goal on our journey. Same thing, we're always goal driven. My goal for you today is for you to see that there is the possibility, even if you're working 9 to 5. Can you focus on 1 deal per season? Can you focus on 1 strategy? Even though we mentioned that, hey, learn 3 different strategies. Why? Because you want to know how to leverage different strategies. What if you're looking for different exit strategies? So make sure lease option is not your only strategy. However, in the advanced class, we're also going to talk about using lease option as an acquisition strategy. You can also use it as an exit strategy at the same time. We'll get into that once you're in the more advanced class. By the way, what's shown on screen are my tenant buyers. And I do have their consent to show you the photos. So they're the ones that you can tell. They're all family people. And those are some of the properties. So a lot of starter homes, and some of them, probably half of them, are new immigrants. They might not have bad credit. However, they need that time to build up the credit. By the way, we are helping them managing their debt in a lot of cases. And for you as investors, you have to know how to leverage your debt as well. So this is one balance transfer credit card that's out there right now. The reason I'm showing this to you is that you can leverage 0% interest. During that time, yes, there's balance transfer fee. However, leverage that money to make more money. And I'll show you how that could possibly help you with your lease option deal and also help you invest in yourself. Because I know a lot of people are new here. You can use that money to invest in yourself. So really, it's not about how much it costs you. For some people, if you're not comfortable with that yet, it's not about how much it costs you. You might think the balance transfer fee is still a fee. However, it's about how much it's going to make you. Money is like a tool. Really, it's about how much you know about it, how much you leverage it, know how to use it. So let's see what is the ROI right now. I'll use the same example. By the way, again, if there's a lot of numbers for you to remember, don't worry about it. I'm going to send out the slides to the strategy coaches. So when you take action and reach out to them, your strategy coaches, you can have the files and ask questions. And you can also ask me questions about my deals. So let's use the same example. Assuming that we start with the same property. Initial investment is still $86,500. And the total profit in 3 years, we've already gone through the number, just over 100,000. Remember that the ROI was 42%. Even if you share the wealth, if you just get into other people's deal, you can also enjoy 21% of return on investment. What if you are able to get $20,000 of balance transfer and 1% transfer fee? We talked about money in the buy. So by the way, by the time you purchase a property, if you're the one that qualify for the mortgage and come in with an initial investment, you're not putting in 20% because you have the initial option consideration to help you. And now if you leverage your balance transfer, let's assume you can get $20,000. So instead of $86,000, you don't have to put in the whole 86. Assuming that 20,000 is from balance transfer, and even consider the fees, your total investment is now reduced to 66,700. Okay, that 1% balance transfer fee, $200. You still have to pay for that, by the way. However, it's an investment that's going to make you more money. So if you look at the ROA now, it has significantly increased. What does that mean? Your money is running even faster for you when you learn and know how to leverage. Does that make sense for everybody? If not, reach out to me. I'm so glad because I know for some people it takes a couple of examples. And when I first use balance transfer example or leveraging other people's money, a lot of people are not used to running the numbers. By the way, return on investment is just how much out and how much money you put in. How much profit you can take out versus how much money you put in. Because you're putting less money in right now, your return on investment is significantly higher. And these are several strategies versus your goals, versus what financial vehicles are out there. By the way, LO stands for lease options. So the strategy we're talking about today, it is a midterm strategy because you're committed to your tenant buyer for at least 2 to 5 years. If you're flipping a house, it could be a matter of months. Or if you're flipping paper wholesale, it could be as quick as a phone call. I've done one of my easiest deal is as quick as a phone call. So lease option, service accommodation, these are midterm strategies. And then long term, when you're holding, I put down service accommodation here as well. Perhaps you want to hold it long term, and that's your focus strategy. So infill is another more advanced strategies at Trust Your Talent. It's basically building from scratch, take everything down. It's actually very different from fix and flip. Even though you're thinking you are replacing old with new, it's a more advanced strategies and a lot more is involved. So if you're in big cities, you've seen new buildings coming up, condos, townhouses, these are infill. So you might have to start from permits, from getting in the gas, the water, etc. So this is a more involved strategy. And cash flowing income property. By the way, if it's not cash flowing, sometimes there is a stabilizing period. However, if it's not cash flowing long term, it's not an income property. So make sure you know where your strategies are. That's why we say at least 3 strategies, because perhaps you want to focus on short term, mid term, long term, and also you want to know what your exit strategies could be. And make sure you know how to invest in yourself. So I love that you're here with me on a weeknight. It's pretty late in a lot of places. It's almost 9 o'clock where I am. So I appreciate you investing in yourself, investing your time with me. Really, you are your biggest investment, your most important investment. And I'm not just saying that because a lot of people just want to learn. I get that for some new investors coming here, you just want to learn about one strategy. What is it really about? By the way, one of the reasons I started with lease option was because it was something that sounded so creative to me. Because before I got trained, I never heard of this strategy. So I thought there was a lot of opportunity, a lot of learning opportunity as well. And it's great that I was able to reach my goals with this strategy. I love people. I love working with people. And me having kids, I could really relate to a lot of tenant buyers. However, you're here, I think is really about compressing time. Because a lot of the tenant buyers, think about it. Some people stay 5 years and they still couldn't have enough down payment, or they just don't know how. They just saw housing prices kept going up. They don't know how to fix their credit. So really, it is about compressing their time too to become homeowners. Why is time so important? If you are willing to do this exercise with me, pull out a piece of paper. You don't have to do it right now. However, do it even after the class. Cross out how many years you have lived on Earth. On average, Canadians' life expectancy is about 83 years. Guys, I'm sorry for you, it's slightly shorter, about just low 80s, 80, 81. For us ladies, we can surpass 83. Just to do it on average, our average life expectancy is 83. So even if you don't want to draw a graph, just put down 1 to 83. Cross out every number, every year you have lived on Earth. And then you realize how much time you have left. So you want to invest in yourself? When is the right time? You want to spend time with your kids? When is the right time? And if you see the percentages I put next to it, even though people say, hey, 40 is the middle age these days, really 60% of your life is already gone. So how do you want to spend your time? And these are a few things I want you to think about. How do you want to spend your time, and who do you want to spend your time with?
It's easy to forget how valuable time is.
So if you have followed along, this is actually the path I'm taking you through today. Did everybody see this? It all started from you. Everything we did today, it all started from you. What your goals are, what's your cash flow? Do you want to create wealth? It is about cash flow. It is about return on investment. And a lot of the time is spent on investor mindset. I hope you're educated today. I know it's a more advanced strategy. Usually it takes 3 full days, at least 12 hours for you to learn about the strategy and start to utilize it. Are you educated today? Do you feel educated today by show of hands that you learned something new? I hope so, thank you. If you're already in the community, even if there's one nugget, I hope there's time well spent. By the way, there's 3 stages, like I mentioned, just like your investing journey. Perhaps you don't know anything right now. You'll start to exercise or utilize different strategies. And same thing, when you get into a lease option, you'll acquire property, enjoy the process, and profit at the end. So we're setting everybody up for success, including yourself. I want you to have a roadmap. Starting from, we talked about the goals in the very beginning. Screening the tenants, are they able to come in the program with an open mind? Are they committed? Are they coachable? Are they ready to be homeowners? Are they ready to have some financial controls in their life? Again, I just want to put it out there. We still have a few webinars if you want to learn about different strategies. However, this is the beginning. I'm just giving you enough information to be dangerous. If you do want to know what's out there, make sure you come to the workshop. So the workshop, it's going to be in person in Toronto, or you can join the online. Also, at annual conference, it's going to be in Vancouver, just before Halloween, the weekend before Halloween. I highly encourage you to be there because you're going to see also existing students. We're going to give out awards to compliment all the students who have shown results. Nina, do you have something to add?
Brooke, I think you meant workshop is in Vancouver, not Toronto.
The November one, right?
Oh, November online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then
Thank you.
October we have workshop in Vancouver.
And all come to Vancouver, so we'll all
Yeah.
party together. Thank you, Nina. By the way, Catherine, can you put the links in the chat in case not everybody is familiar with how to use QR codes? So if you're coming to join us at the annual conference, these are the courses available for TYT enrolled students. If you're still new, come to the live workshop. It's gonna be available at the conference as well. And we're gonna all dress up at the dinner night. So it's quite exciting because I haven't met a lot of you on the screen, even though we've talked, even though I feel like I've known you forever. So thank you for today. Thank you for spending your 1.5 hours on a weeknight with me. In case you have any questions at the end, I'm gonna open up the next 10 minutes for questions.
I have a question.
Yes, Winnie?
So how can we do this and help with the retirement, reduce it from 40 to 4?
So remember I showed you the example of doing one deal per season? That's actually consistently 16 deals.
Okay.
So if you're looking at, for example, $800 per deal, if you're doing this part-time effort, joint venture with everybody, 800 times 4. Second year is 800 times 8. So 800 times 12. Is that enough cash flow to cover your basic expenses yet?
Okay, so you have to keep doing it after the 4th year. You have to keep doing it. It's not like you stop after year 4.
By the way, it depends. You could. Personally, I don't actively involve in these options anymore. And I have consistently done it for 4 years. Why? Because you have accumulated enough capital, like I've shown you. You have accumulated enough capital, you can focus on different strategies. So you could, there are students who are successfully, continuously using the strategy. At the same time, you could pivot. It really depends on where you are in life and where your goals are.
And I think the big thing, sorry, Brooke, just to jump in here, the big thing, Winnie and everyone, is that this is one of many strategies. We talk about having 3x3, 3 strategies, 3 markets. And we always want to have active capital accumulation to then invest into long-term wealth generation. So when we talk about building active capital and having high cash flow returns, this is definitely one of many strategies that could get you there. So if you rely on this strategy alone, definitely, even as the economy and economic times change, it's a great strategy to fall back on for very much your double-digit returns and active cash flow, and to create other retirement plans if you do it at scale. Of course, there's no one and done deal or one and done strategy. If that was the case, we'd all be in Turks and Caicos right now and not even be attending the webinar. This is constantly evolving to grow the portfolio, compound the results, and again, getting in control of the retirement and getting control of the future. So.
And this is just a basic webinar too. I just want to show you the possibility. Remember, we focus so much on the goals. If it aligns with your goal, I help you reach there, by all means. This is just a way we look at where your goals are, how we choose a strategy, how we don't focus on just one market, one strategy, and how you reach your goal with the numbers. That's why I didn't get into exactly how to calculate mortgages, to calculate expenses. Really, this is the basic webinar just to show you that, hey, this can be done and why that is. Vince, you have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Nina was saying too, just because this is simply just one strategy. The goal is to get you more well-rounded, so that way you have multiple strategies under your tool belt. Because the thing is, we can't determine how the markets will change, whether it goes up, down, or sideways. Multiple strategies allows you to pivot when you need to pivot. Now, the other thing too is it's gaining that confidence, the financial confidence that you need so that you can make money whenever you need it. So if it's the goal of making more on the cash flow side and you need immediate cash flow, let's say, for example, you're planning to have a kid. Oh, maybe I should get a lease option to support that kid for the next 3 years or 4 years. Oh, well, you know what? My parents are getting old. I'm thinking they're going to retire in the next 4 years. Let's start building some long-term generational wealth for them. So that way, by the time that they retire in 4 years, they will have a bit of a nest egg for multi-unit residential properties. So just some ideas on how you can think about it. Or let's say for the ladies, maybe you want a Hermes bag And if anybody knows what the Hermes bags, they're like $10,000. Hey, you're gonna have to do one wholesale deal, maybe two wholesale deals, $5,000 each. And
Hermes,
there's your
Vince.
Hermes bag.
Hermes. Hermes.
Hermes, sorry, ladies, sorry. But you know what I mean, though. That's the confidence for you to be able to make the money when you need it to support whatever the reason is. And that's the confidence that we're instilling in all of our students, and the students in the room who are already being trained and getting started. You're probably starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel. You're like, oh, I could start to see the possibilities now, strategy after strategy after strategy, and that's what we're talking about. So yeah, I'll just bring the mic back to you there, Brooke.
Thank you, Vince. Kate.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the rent when you do lease options is subject to raise each year like it is like normally in like a typical rental.
Mm-hmm. Business decision. By the way, for mine, I did within the legal limits. Not everybody does. In the beginning, I didn't. Later on, I did. Remember, lease is still a lease, so you can do within what is legally allowed. By the way, everything is business decision, like I mentioned. So a lot of people didn't increase the rent, for example. However, I also tell the tenant buyer, we buy this property for you. I made it clear we are basically covering the expenses of the mortgage, etc., just like a bridge mortgage, carrying it for you. So when my mortgage went up a lot, I actually spoke to some of the tenant buyers saying, okay, let's see what we can work out. It's things like that. You can have a little bit of flexibility as to what to do. By the way, everything you do is very important that you have it clear in the option contract. When I introduce the strategy, I use the words very carefully because I won't tell the tenant, you're not going to get a refund. I don't say it that way. I said legally that because we're carrying this for you, it's a property of your choice. These expenses will come up. So you're likely not going to see your option coming back. I'm just not going to refund you the money. So same thing as I don't want them to think. I actually had a tenant buyer. He rented out the place, sublet it and not letting me know. I found out because he thought, hey, I have equity stake in the game. So again, I said, no. Remember I said this, I put in money, I put in option consideration. Remember, it's still consideration. Remember, you didn't put in down payment. You don't have equity yet. We want them to feel like they're home because one day they're going to own it. So it's good that they improve the property. They want to paint. They want to have new flooring. That's perfectly fine. So it's things like that that makes a seasoned and ethical investors operate differently from somebody who just want to jump in. I'll give you example. I can give you examples of how it shouldn't be done. However, I think if you're trained the right way, knowing why we do everything we do, you'll be fine. Kate.
So the option consideration like kind of converts to a down payment or towards down payment. But when you said that it might not go back to them, like there's expenses, I think even maybe staging or something.
If they don't buy the property. Remember, I said it's an option to exercise the purchase option. They're not obligated to.
Okay. So if they don't go forward, the option consideration can be used towards the other expenses that you'll incur then.
Mm-hmm. This is very important once you get into more advanced creative financing strategies, because sometimes you are obligated. So agreement for sale, you're obligated. Option is not obligated, but they have the first right to say no. Nina, you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I was also going to say this is where there could be it's your exit strategy, and also there's other expenses that you incur, your own time, your administrative time. Right now I'm dealing with the lease options where unfortunately the couple's getting separated and after a year, and kind of having a few different discussions to figure out a win-win. And at the same time, I'm incurring costs of putting together a release, and it's pretty amicable, but it's still extra administrative costs. And therefore, again, when you have these open and transparent conversations with your tenant buyers, you can come to a win-win as well. What is your time worth? And how do you kind of spread that backwards? And you're investing, it's also about creating that understanding. You're investing in them when the bank's not willing to. And so most times, as long as your due diligence is done correctly, which is what you're going to learn through the advanced course, you know, you can definitely protect yourself, but also make it very clear that this is not a hand out, it's a hand up.
Thank you, Nina. Any more questions, Kate?
Yeah, I guess I just had thought that option consideration was like never going back to the tenant, because like that's part of the investment, part of the process. Like it's their option to purchase. It's not, I didn't even realize that it was like optional to go back to them. So I guess it's like all in the wording and how you sit down and talk to them. Is that something that you learn in the class, like how to have those conversations and how to talk to the tenant correctly?
When I started learning about lease option, I think there's legally something that made us rephrase. It wasn't phrased like this before. So if you're taking the lease option class, you'll see that now the contract says option consideration minus this and this and that, but not limited to, because something happened in the past. I'm not sure what happened. However, I think when I started to learn about it, that term was changed. I don't know if it's province dependent. However, I think it's safe to say that, hey, we're going to put it in there to say we're going to minus all the expenses.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
there isn't it's not a requirement's a strong word. However, there is a more compliant way, especially because due to CMHC financing. And so CMHC, when they examine rent to own contracts, and this is, you will learn it in class and also more in detail with mentorship as well, Kate. But you do have to make sure the clause is stated a certain way in order to, and it probably, I don't know if it's probably, but you do have to make sure it's worded a certain way to ensure that your tenant buyer will qualify for CMHC financing, or CMHC insurance rather, not financing, mortgage insurance, and at the same time that your butts are protected as well for a well-structured rent-to-own program. So there is the clause is along the lines of essentially your option consideration is refundable less the costs incurred for XYZ, and it's essentially you can keep most of it, and at the same time it's worded in a way where it's considered fair.
Speaking of CMHC, sorry, go ahead.
I was just trying to add to that, because when you guys are in the advanced class, when you guys enroll into that class there, we will be providing the templates as well to all the contracts. And when you're working with your mentor and as well as you're going through all the content, the suggestion is to bring this up with your lawyer just to look it over and make sure that it's to your standards as well. And of course that it follows your provincial laws. And you know, we're right across Canada and also going into the States, a lot of students in the States as well. So these are the suggestions that we will give you during the class to make them so that they are specific to you and specific to what you are looking for in terms of your business and your business decisions as well.
And yes, these things keep getting updated too. So one of the things is, for example, CMHC want to make sure they have enough down payment. So your clause is saying that's going to be converted to their down payment. And you showing at the end, it's going to be a private closing. So remember when we calculate the number at closing, there's no agent fee because the tenant buyer will just purchase privately from you or the investor. So they just want to make sure how it should be stated in the purchase agreement, how you're going to show that this is how much they have in down payment, that kind of thing. And that's all correlated to how you phrase it too. So yes, it's a lot. However, just to show you that in the advanced class, you'll have an idea why does it take 12 hours. Some people are like, okay, Brooke, you did a 1.5 hour presentation. I know what it is. I'm going to run with it. No, this is why. Okay. So thank you everybody for spending the time. I know it's late for everybody. However, I do want to be able to see all of you in person. in 2 weeks. So I'll see you at the annual conference or the online live workshop. Good night, everybody.